Hello, everyone. So I'm going back to using the program to record this. I guess because I'm not in Zoom, it doesn't allow me to use the virtual background. Yeah, okay, so maybe my camera is a little bit like weird sometimes. I mean, because I've recorded many of these videos before, pre-recorded as you if you've seen the edit videos, and what I've noticed is, well, it could also be because I set the capture size to a larger window when I want to capture the screen as well. But yeah, it seems like the quality is decreased. I know sometimes it could be my camera because like I don't know, sometimes it just does that. Could be because my camera is having some technical difficulties. I might have to get a new one before the end of the year if I can't find the other one that I have. So, anyways, so I was gonna hopingly to just also do it this way so that I can capture the screen with the the notes to kind of read along with you guys. But unfortunately, it looks like they don't have the update yet, as of yet. I have a suspicion or theory that maybe the person who, the volunteer who helps to post these online, is maybe busy on Sundays now. Because what I've another observation is that sometimes after some of the Facebook watch parties, people would just get together on Zoom and discuss the questions. But well, lo and behold, the questions are not available. So that kind of makes sense that they're not that maybe that's why we're not doing that. I haven't seen that happening again as of late. So I'm just gonna maybe come up with one or two of my own questions and just kind of answer that. So I guess like we don't really need this anymore. But I do know what the passages were. So maybe that I can still pull those up on the screen. So this is kind of like what the passages were. But anyways, maybe like as usual, I would even before reading the what do you call it, the review or summary, or like the I guess recap. What did they call it again? Let's see. I can't actually see my own screen unless I capture the screen. So the main idea, yeah, I usually say my own anyways. So today, like the first scripture, as you saw. Oh, where did I go? Uh-oh. Hello, hello. uh, I think you guys might have lost me again, unless the program is just glitching. So let's see here. If I hit this, it says switch to screen. So maybe you can see me, maybe maybe you can't, but I can't see myself as normally. So well, I guess it's working exactly the way I want it to, but that's sort of. Oh, okay. It just was lagging. Now I see myself again. I was like, okay, well, this will allow me to search up the Bible passages while you are still watching me, instead of watching me search up the Bible passages. Well, I can again pause the recording to do that, so I probably will, but save time. All right, so, but anyways, the main idea, we talk like so. I can't remember his exact name. Well, anyways, he was talking about like the how God is like has genius, and he kind of transferred his genius to us, based on the I guess exegesis they call it of Romans 12, where like he was talking about how like it says that we should be renewed by the transforming of our mind. And the one point that I really liked was when he brought up the fact that, oh, people ask him, is smoking a sin, or even sometimes people like they're debating, is drinking a sin. And like he brought a really good point, and I was just gonna also expand on it myself, even though he didn't say this in the message. If you watch it, you can watch it on the YouTube, or there will probably be a link from the main website, the main Wu's website as well. But he's talking about how like yeah, they asked him like is is it a sin to smoke? And he's like, well, why don't you just, maybe you shouldn't be asking yourself that. Like, maybe you should just like be like, maybe the better question is like, is it stupid? And I think like that's a great way of looking at things, right? Because like God also gave us a brain that we can think for ourselves, and whether there's a self to ask yourself, whether obviously, like, there's implications, like, okay, this will lead to the point, this, like, smoking is not good for your body. It could also be harmful for other people around you, a secondhand smoke. And then it's like, maybe the Bible doesn't explicitly say, thou shalt not smoke, but but at the same time, like, it's like he's kind of getting us in the mindset to, it's like, okay, well, is that like a good decision, or is it something that you should, like, you think it through, is like, is that going to be a smart thing to do? And then once you think it through, like, okay, maybe it's not so great, like, there's some like downsides to smoking. Maybe some people like the stimulation, but it's also like, there's some side effects as well. It is not exactly the same as, another issue that people are talking about nowadays, which with the COVID vaccine, right? It's like, okay, yes, there is some people who kind of experience serious side effects from the COVID vaccine, and also potentially die. But apparently the percentages of, the people who actually die are not very high. So, yes, there is some side effects. And then, you wait for yourself. It's like, okay, um, uh, uh, so all right, so the data is a bit skewed because Pfizer and Moderna did their clinical trials before the Delta variant came out, which was like a little bit more resistant to your body just fighting it off once you've been immunized. So like they don't measure the thing is, but for the other vaccines, when it comes to like alpha variant or the original COVID, if you take the virus, you're more than 90% less likely, according to the trials. It might not be 100% accurate, but let's just say, the trials are not, they're not like the ideal, right? Because the thing is, they didn't, okay, when they had the placebo group and then they had the vaccine group, what they were saying is that the vaccinated group ended up with 90% fewer cases than the people who only received the placebo. But the thing is, because of the people only receive the placebo, they have no protection, right? So what I'm saying is they didn't actually intentionally expose the people like in both groups to the virus to see like who would catch it or not. So it's, but obviously I thought about that. I'm like, okay, well, is it like a bit like also skewed because of the fact that, okay, the people taking the vaccine are normally more careful anyways. But then again, the people who received the placebo didn't know they got the placebo before they got tested for COVID. So, so I guess, like, so you can't really say that, okay, the people who got the placebo are not as careful as people who normally want to get the vaccine in the first place. So, obviously, you can't really say that. Maybe some of them are more careful, some of them are not more careful, but it's hard to say that for sure only the people who received the vaccine are more careful than the people who got the placebo, obviously, in that case. So when they do the samples, like, they're saying that from those results, it seems like there is, so what I'm saying is, even if the clinical trial data is a bit skewed, and that percentage of the population sample of those guys happen to just have, they just happen not to contract the, like, not to have opportunity to be infected, as opposed to, the vaccine was the one that protected them from the virus, right? So let's just say, like, it's not as good as 90%. Maybe it's only 75% that you're less likely that you will get the virus. So 75% versus maybe 0.75%, you might get a fatal side effect and die. The thing is, in addition to not getting the virus, they're also saying that even if you get the virus, your chances of like dying are also lowered. So it may still have, maybe you don't have a 90% chance of not getting the virus, but you still have maybe a 90% better chance of not dying if you get the vaccine versus maybe 0.75% increase chance of dying from the vaccine. Like the numbers are really low. They're saying it's like 1 in a million almost. So maybe like so or okay, let's just give it the let's like again let's be generous and let's just say that maybe because not enough people who are gonna die from the vaccine have taken the vaccine yet, right? So let's be generous in that regard too. So let's say like instead of 90%, it's almost 1%, like 0.9% of people who take the vaccine are gonna die. So when you weigh the decision, you're like, okay, well, I am 0.9% more likely to die from the vaccine if I take it, or I'm also 90% less likely to die from the virus if I take it. So, so in that regard, you know, your chances of dying from the virus are a lot less. Your chances from dying from the vaccine obviously are more than zero if you don't take the vaccine at all. But also at the same time, the basically the bottom line was that the news thinks it through for you as well. They tell you how to think. They say that well, you are like pretty much X number of times more likely to die from the virus itself than die from the vaccine, right? So same thing. Instead of asking yourself about smoking, not everybody, for some people, smoking is a no-brainer, right? They might be like, I'm not gonna smoke because it's just it's not for me. But some people have already made that decision, and they continue to make it because that's either their habit or they're addicted to the nicotine or whatever it is. They just continue to smoke, right? And some people they already know it's not a good thing, and they just they are struggling with quitting, right? So, but anyways, but the whole point about that is he's saying that maybe all the time most of the time you don't necessarily always have to ask yourself, is it a sin to smoke? The thing is it a smart thing? And I think like definitely when it comes to like even the other stuff, right? Like is it smart that I'm thinking about I want to kill somebody and I actually go ahead and do it? It's like you don't have to ask like is it a sin? Well, yes, for something like that, the Bible does explicitly say that it is a sin. Exodus 20, um, but at the same time, like if you didn't know, whether or not in our right now in our current times, whether or not deciding to murder somebody is a sin, you can also ask yourself, well, is it a smart thing to do? The thing is, you definitely will lose the person. Right now, and the consequences in our like pretty much like as far as I know, pretty much everywhere is that you also will you'll be charged with murder, and you can go to jail. So you weigh the negative consequences over the positive consequences, right? Like the normal decision making process. Kind of. So I was really yeah, I really like that the way he put it in there, and I think it kind of speaks for itself the way he presented it. So I thought that was a really good point about that. And and I think and he was also saying other statistical data about like how children were tested as being geniuses, but like when you get older, you're not. And I think it's sort of like it's a bit implied but not explicit, and obviously there's no like direct proof, but like it's also a bit like it's sort of implied like even though he didn't explicitly say that when you're getting older, you maybe turning away from God, maybe you're born like innocent, you're born with the image of God, you're born with his genius, but then you kind of turn away from it. So all right, so I guess like the question that I would pose for like myself, since I don't know what the actual questions are, and just throw it out there, and then before maybe I talk a few minutes about like just updates for myself. By the way, the Hebrew video should be coming out tomorrow as well. Hopefully I get around to doing it. Otherwise, it might be a little late on Thursday, but normally it's Wednesdays. Anyways, so the question I asked myself is that what are some of the things that you also are unsure of that could be dismissed if you are if you just think about thinking about it smartly. So like for me, like there's recently sort of kind of ties into the end of the video. I'm gonna give updates. I noticed that they had UFix again this year, so I decided to check out. Like I also was busy with my assignments and stuff, so I didn't check out the whole thing. So that was kind of smart. I didn't spend the whole Obviously I can't spend the whole 168 hours watching, or even just watching the whole day. Because at nighttime they repeat it when people are sleeping and stuff like that. So, but other countries who are awake at the time can also tune in. Uh, so I made that decision, but also I decided to play a bit of Fortnite because they had another streaming tournament as part of the conference. So, but like now that I sort of got a little bit hooked. So so I could also like kind of phrase that to myself. The Bible doesn't talk about Fortnite. So is it a sin to play Fortnite? Well, does it like does it promote violence and murder? Like I mentioned earlier, right? And then I think that obviously like they do have Fortnite tournaments as part of their church programming of that church. So like that so they don't necessarily like so you can say argue they're promoting it almost they're using it like they're doing it as part of their some of their programming. So like so maybe it's not a sin, right? At the same time, I think that sometimes the questions are not so like black and white as well, right? So okay, so it's not a sin to play Fortnite. But the problem is like maybe sometimes in some days I play it more than I should. So then the question also kind of changes, like is it a sin to play like 5 hours of Fortnite today, kind of thing. So obviously, I don't think it will necessarily be on all days to be a sin to play. But if I if I don't prioritize myself, and like it becomes a distraction, it becomes an idol, and I play maybe 5-6 hours of Fortnite a day, then maybe that's not so smart, right? Because then it takes away time from you doing other stuff, and and it can get it can get a bit addictive. So today I'm just gonna try to commit to not playing at all, um, and that's one of the things that that's one of my goals. It's like don't play Fortnite today, So but that doesn't necessarily mean like okay whatever it's a sin to play it necessarily, but like but when you apply this new mentality, so the question sort of like is like if you're applying a new mentality to look at some of your decisions, what in your decisions do you feel is not smart to do, as opposed to having to ask yourself whether it's sinful. So that's question one. Question two, maybe I'll say what are some ways that you think that you can well, you know what, I actually will rewatch the message a bit later, because I actually was I apparently missed the last 10 minutes or so because I was also I went to do the laundry. But anyways, we can look at the Bible passages together. Maybe that would be helpful. I need semicolons. There we go. So since I don't have a summary to read you, I'm just gonna read you all the verses that he was trying to highlight. So this video might be a little longer than usual, actually. Hebrews 12:2. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Put on the new self. Therefore, if you have been raised with Christ, keep seeking the things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on the things above and not on the earth. All right, so that might be a good question on itself as well that I just thought of when I read that. But let's just finish this. There's only a few more left. 2 Corinthians 2:16. For who has known the mind of the Lord, that he will instruct him, but we have the mind of Christ. Genesis 2:19-20. Out of the ground the earth formed every beast of the field, and every bird of the sky, and brought them to the man what he would call them. And whatever the man called a living creature, that was his name. The man gave names to all the cattle, and to the birds of the sky, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper suitable for him. Luke 24:45. Then he opened their minds to understand the scripture. So based on that, and I guess the other 75% of the 40 maybe 45 minutes he was talking, that I had listened to, I'm just gonna throw another question out there. Is number two is that how can you set your minds on the things above? Like it says in that Colossians. How can you prioritize or increase your thinking to like kind of to think about the things that God the things that God cares about and stuff like that. So this question sort of have two aspects to it. Like you could talk about how do you kind of gain all like how can you prioritize trying to seek the mind of God, or you could talk about like actual practical examples, like I mentioned earlier about Fortnite, right? You could say like how can I in my decision making process about something specific, kind of like kind of like make a better decision that will be like more putting my minds on things above and like giving my mind to God. So yeah, so like I think I'll kind of answer like maybe a little bit of both, and not give a too in-depth and lengthy answer on either one. But if you're doing this and like if you guys are still gathering for like message discussion, even though we are having a few weeks break from crew right now, during the latter half of the summer, you guys can answer each of those separately in more depth if you choose. But I'm just gonna like throw it out there, and I think like the two kind of tie hand in hand almost. For me, I want to like I want to spend more time with God is something I mentioned in the last crew. So that's something like I want to do like and the second thing is that I want to prioritize like kind of like making God a priority. Like like I when I was watching the last crew live that they did for last week, they said one thing that they mentioned was like Michelle was saying that it's like you don't call it quiet time, you call it priority time. So like that to kind of piggyback off that a little bit, how do I like make my time with God a priority is sort of like another way of stating that second question and how I'm going to answer it. So for like kind of both, like I play hockey, and eventually I'm going to go back to playing hockey. And like I remember like back in the day, even though I was playing hockey at the time, like but I had a little bit more free time. Like I wasn't working, and I wasn't in school maybe that one particular year in 2012. And I drove all the way to Ottawa, and I didn't listen to a podcast. I mean, I was enjoying the sights. Like all the green that you see, like between cities. Like basically it's Canada. It's beautiful, right? It's not necessarily populated. You see a lot of like just the highway and a lot of open land, and a lot of actual natural scenery, like mountains, not necessarily mountains, hills, I guess, and like trees and stuff. So it was kind of nice to get all that in, and I also spend a lot of time just praying to God, or like having quiet time and not saying a word, and there's no words coming out on the radio, and just kind of like just saving that time for God. So what I'm saying is that recently, because I got busy, so for example the year before COVID, in that 2019, sometimes like in the car I would listen to textbooks when I'm driving, and not even for 5 hours, like for shorter trips, like just like even like 20 minutes sometimes, like maybe sometimes a bit longer, sometimes a bit shorter, depending where I'm playing that day, right? So like, and another thing I decided to do was sometimes I would listen to some of my I guess you could call it the goalie Bible of mine, or the hockey goaltending. Where is it right now? Yeah, here it is. So I had like converted some of it to text, like electronic text, and I had my my app read it for me. So I decided right now over the summer to try to actually make my own recordings of like the text for my own personal listening from when I'm in the car, right? So it's my voice as opposed to the robotic computer generated voice, which is not too bad, but maybe the actual voice is better, like like I can't. So I did some audio files in my own voice of just the direct reading of the book instead of the computer reading it, to listen to. But I think, like, like I said, maybe goaltending is not necessarily a sin, and but, like, maybe, like, overly prioritizing other things, even like school and or goaltending, can be, like, not a smart decision, like, like in the first question, right? So maybe, like, not every single time that I'm driving around that I will necessarily need to listen to a textbook or listen to, like, my goalie Bible skills and tips and stuff like that. So maybe sometimes I just, like, did what I did the audio trip. I just spend the time praying to God and stuff, right? So even though I don't have the faith mobile anymore, which is where I did it, in the faith mobile, you know, that doesn't mean that necessarily I just because you lost the faith mobile doesn't necessarily mean you got to throw the faith out too, So that kind of, like, is a good segue to the last 2 minutes, and actually I can keep this video still within 30 minutes, as most of my videos are. So, like, recently I've been trying to, like, aside from studying Hebrew, like, that's kind of why I'm doing some of the Hebrew lesson videos as well. Hopefully help me to better get some of the grammar into my memory, as well as the vocabulary. I've been also doing some of the stuff, like, I taken this off another chest protector, and I'm gonna attach it to the older 1X that I'm, like, kind of, like, reinforcing or refurbishing. I don't know, like, I find, like, the Bauer ones are not too bad. Like, people like the mobility, but I personally, I find, like, well, the thing is, I don't actually like, I know that they say they break down, right? And sometimes you face some pretty hard shots. Like, let's be honest. Like, I was playing this one shinny, and, like, that was actually through these guys, through these guys, the Worcestershire Goldify slaves, and not and, like, these bunch of youngsters, like, they shoot pretty hard, and one shot, like, pretty much, like, the second time second or third time that I used the mask already, I got my cage dented. So, like, I took a shot near the eye area and the cage was dented. Even though, like, I don't know necessarily that cage is the same thickness as the OTNY cage, but, like, because it's not a certified cage, usually the metal bars are a bit thicker on those, cat eyes, but apparently it still bent the cage. So, obviously, if a shot can bend the cage, which is metal, even though sometimes it's just because you happen to get hit in a bad spot too, so there's that factor. Think about what it could do to your chest protector, which is, like, kind of, you just foam, right? So, like, again, maybe, like, that's another thing I can consider, right? Like, like, I shouldn't speak badly about Bauer until I've made more of a comparison, like, I've had other brands before. My first brand that I used more regularly was a Vaughn, but that was already used to begin with. So, like, pretty much, like, I felt that was not very protective at all. Although some people do say, in general, Vaughns are not as protective because they also favor mobility over protection as well, which they do talk about in chapter 2 of this book. But anyway, so the whole point is that I often find that I had to take my chest protectors apart and, like, kind of refurbish them or reinforce them sometimes. And I did that with the old, so this is from my old Reactor 6000, so I decided to keep it around and kind of just, like, I took it apart and I'm changing the liner to kind of a more of a dry fit material and hoping to use it as one for ball hockey, which is so it's not as hot when I'm playing. I also took the heart guard and put that to the no, it's not the 1S, it's the NXG, so the one that was, like, really old one that I got on sale. So now that one has a double heart guard now. So, because I took the heart guard from the 6000 and put that on the NXG as well, which actually both of them are made from the same material, the Maxorb. So that's kind of like basically just double up on that. So which kind of because I actually put another heart guard there from a player chest protector, but now I'm just using the heart guard from an actual like goalie chest protector now, and I put a different heart guard for the one that I'm going to use for ball hockey. So, but I haven't finished sewing that one up yet. I've also decided to try to double neck this double neck collar the one, so sometimes it's gonna sit a bit higher, like on top of the existing one, so that it kind of gives me a bit more neck protection because I find it's a bit hot, especially if I'm wearing the Maltese. So I also have a D3O neck collar alternative, and that one is actually perforated. Like you can see, like there's a grid of foam, like sort of like graphing paper, right? There's spaces in between, so that kind of allows it to air it out a bit more. So it's not quite as bad as wearing the Maltese one, where it's solid gel and then it's also solid nylon on top of it, right? So it doesn't really breathe at all. So it's kind of hot to wear that. So sometimes maybe I'm just gonna try to get by with just wearing the plastic Lexin throat protector, and then just have the double collar, like one sitting a bit top, so that sort of leaves a bit less of a gap, although it's still a bit of a risk. But believe it or not, like sometimes even when I'm wearing both the neck collar, bib thing as they call it sometimes, and the Lexin, I sometimes get shots that I really feel it still. So you can only do so much. But the whole point is like, yeah. So back to what I was saying about the chest protectors. So Bauer is the even though I bought them from like a different store, like not necessarily one of the mainstream stores. Is there some like counterfeit stuff? I would hope not. I would say not. Like I don't think there's. I've read any rumors about people making counterfeit stuff, but some of the at least they stopped making most of their stuff in Canada for a while now. My pads and gloves are still made in Canada. Um, but like some of the new stuff, people also complain about the durability of the outside, and they're saying maybe it's that new technology. So hopefully now with the current generation, which I might get used at some point, like the Hyperlight and the ultrasonic, hopefully they have improved the technology and they've improved the durability of the Core-Tech as well. Because some people were complaining about like the some of that stuff like breaks down too quickly. So that was one thing that people talk about. So there is other people also commenting about the durability of Bauer, but as I said, to be fair, even though I've used other brands, I have never bought a new chest protector that was not Bauer, because I simply haven't been able to find like a good enough deal at the time. So I sort of like the Bauer, after using the reactor, the one that I showed you the collar from. So, but well, I mean, like the reason why I say like like that one was actually only protected for 6 months, but it was used to begin with. It may or may not be as used as the seller made it to sound like. So it's hard to say. Is it maybe like he lied about how new it was or not. But at the same time, there's other ones I bought from a store, and maybe I bought like after a year and a half, maybe 2 years. They start to you start to feel the shots because it's starting to break down, right? So like what I'm saying is that you know somebody other people have told me that they tend to last a bit longer. They tend to last longer, and it depends on who you play against, which is true. Like I said, sometimes I play against some groups, they shoot pretty hard, so that might be a factor, right? But anyway, so the whole point is, yeah. So I got the two Bowers that were like new, not the reactor, the NXG, for example. But and even though I rotate those to some of the other ones I was using at the time, they don't seem to be very durable. After like not too long, I got to reinforce them, right? So, like I said, the 6,000 that I got, even though it was used for the first 6 months, it was like it was gold. I wouldn't complain about it at all. But then eventually, I started feeling shots again, and I actually added more padding to that one as well. So, and also I was wearing like a rib protector from lacrosse underneath because I kind of felt that I started feeling shots in the ribs. So it's hard to say. Maybe that even the rib side protection started to wear down. So um, like for the first 6 months, I would just wear it stock, and it was pretty good. Like I wouldn't feel anything. I was doing like at least 3 times a week, right? So maybe that's why too, because I play a lot, so they kind of for somebody who plays once a week as opposed to somebody who plays at least 3 times a week, you may not face as many shots onto your chest protector as I do, right? So, but anyway, so and I know like some of the pros, they go through them in less than 6 months as well, um, in other brands. But what I'm saying is that I have never bought a non-Bauer chest protector new from a store, to compare for you whether or not these Bauers tend to break down faster than others. But what I'm saying is that throughout the summer, one of the things I've been doing is I've been modifying and my chest protectors. But on the plus side, even though on the pads and stuff, obviously because they've seen more years and they see more abuse. For the chest protectors, some of the used ones that I've bought, again, because it's some of them the damage was already there before I bought it, so who knows how other people will use their chest protectors, right? But what I'm saying is, I think even some of the used ones I bought, sometimes they will start to rip on the outside, like just like not talking about like the protection of the padding, but the shell itself will start to rip. So on the plus side, I would say that I seem to notice less ripping and tearing of the shell of the Bowers compared to some of the other brands. So even though the overall protection is still just not there, as it would be other brands, at least that part, so that could be a plus, right? Because you could always take the shell apart and change the foams or whatever, like they did with Martin Berdeur's chest protector, and I think they did that with James Reimer's chest protector as well, because he liked to use the old 195, which is the one just before my NXG, and they would just take it apart and they'll put new foams in there, so that he can still be protected even though he's wearing the same chest protector. Maybe they'll fix some of the shell as well for him, but anyways, for him or Brodeur. But the whole point is, you can't really do that if the shell is starting to rip, right? Then you have to either change the shell itself, like maybe that one sheet, and put a new nylon in there instead. So if with the more durable shell, that's good in the sense that I can do my own refurbishing of my chest protectors as well. Not to say that all the other brands like rip like crazy, but I'm just saying like the general observation seems like the shells of the Bowers seem to be a bit more durable than some of the the Reebok, the Vons, and the even the Bryans that I've used. That. Oh, I also used the what's it called, JDB, before. I had a JDB one as well. So you could put it that way. So that's a good. So anyway, so I got it. So yeah, that's enough for today. So that's a short update, and I'm just gonna end the video. It's a little late, but yeah. So I think from now on, maybe I'll try to do like the last 2 minutes just to give a bit more updates, make it more personal. Just it's things that you could just like if you want to pray about it or whatever, and just like give you some updates of how like my week is going, on the end of the video as well.